Hey everybody, welcome back to the Pilot Show, a show by and for people who don't always finish things. It's me, Captain Logan, and here is my wonderful co-host, Jayson, my son.
There's me.
How's it going, man?
Good.
I let music run and we almost listened to some Sonic Mania there.
Oh, well, at least that's good music.
Yeah, that's true.
And music that won't get us copyrighted.
Copyright flagged.
Copyright flag.
Yeah.
What's...
Because
Oh, yeah.
the
we're
difference
not
is
copyrighted.
Yeah, the difference is the person that T. Lopes can't come in and go, I own you guys now. You
Yeah.
used my music. Anyway, how's everybody doing? This is our fourth attempt at one of these, and we're going to mix things up today a little bit and do a kind of show we want to do every so often with the Pilot Show, where instead of watching one pilot, we're going to watch two.
Ooh.
And instead of watching two random, unrelated pilots, we're going to watch two pilots that have something in common, something to do with each other, and a lot more than the double features I've been doing lately for the Superhero Rewind Commentary Project. Today we're going to do the obvious thing for Halloween and sitcoms, and one of the reasons we wanted to make the Pilot Show in the first place, we talked about this all the way at the beginning of this. Wouldn't it be fun to pit the Addams Family and the Munsters against each other and try to decide which is the better pilot? And growing up, I was always more of a Munsters fan.
Yeah.
And it's really just because, for whatever reason, we didn't really watch The Addams Family. So, for me, The Addams Family was a movie, not a TV show. Like, I knew about the TV show, but I hardly ever saw an episode of it.
Yeah, and me too. Like, I haven't seen the movie, and I hadn't seen anything of the TV show.
We'll have to do that
So,
soon.
yeah.
Watch the movie together. Maybe do something on the channel about it.
Yeah. That'd be fun.
I think you'll like it a lot.
Yeah.
It's kind of a different thing, and it's kind of in some ways, although more stylish and handled a lot better, kind of the same thing that they did with the Brady Bunch in the 90s when they took that to the big screen.
Yeah.
Where there's this kind of fun juxtaposition of I mean, I guess the show was kind of like this in the first place, where it's not like, oh, you're stuck back in the 60s or 70s, but everything else is the 90s. But it feels a little bit like that, where it's like, here's this real dark, bleak, macabre family, and nobody around them understands them, but they seem maybe a little bit scarier than they are in the TV show.
Yeah. Huh.
But the initial material, the ideas, the characterization is like more or less intact from the original idea. And of course, the biggest difference between, we're going to compare and contrast these for this whole show. The big difference between the two from the outset is that one is an adaptation.
Yeah.
One starts as a comic strip.
Yeah, and one stole that idea and used Universal monsters instead.
Yeah. But didn't rip off the other show because they start the same year. And that's the thing I always forget, is that both of these shows are 1964.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I thought Munsters came after, actually.
Yeah, so, honestly, I think I did too. Yeah, I was really kind of surprised. Maybe I knew that at one time, but...
I also didn't know that Addams Family was an adaptation anyway, because I know nothing about Addams Family.
And of course,
before I watched
it's been redone over and over again in various media in a way that the Munsters hasn't. And there have been a few attempts at Munsters revivals.
Yeah.
Did you know that there was a more serious Brian Fuller pilot?
Oh.
For the Munsters in, I think, the early 2000s, maybe?
Weird.
I've never seen it. I think it aired and then didn't go to series.
Oh.
I've heard good things about it, and I always thought that was a cool idea.
Yeah.
And then there was another attempted reboot thing, or it didn't actually end up happening. It didn't come into fruition a few years ago, even before Rob Zombie got his hands on it and did simply the worst movie I've ever seen. Teddy, $5 super chat. Man, that would be great if copyright laws make it so the person or company just owns your entire existence if you use their material. Now, people wouldn't rip you off as often, but that would not be great because the lines can be blurred so much.
Yeah.
That if it should be, I mean, it could be a nightmare, right? Like if it should be fair use, but then they own your soul anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress. Jayson, I'm excited to hear your research. On these shows. As we always do, we're going to open with a background segment, and Jayson is going to give us a bit of a breakdown of a presentation about both of these shows, and we decided to go ahead and do the background segment for both of the shows together.
Yeah.
And then we'll go ahead and watch each of the pilots in order instead of I say in order one after another instead of doing background for one and then watching a show and then doing background for one, which we had kicked around doing, but I think it'll be easier to kind of compare and contrast while we're watching if we don't have to break it up with the background stuff, especially because I'm intentionally not doing too much in the way of research myself so that Jayson can own the segment and be investigating researcher guy. And so I want to be surprised by some information and be, a little bit more show analysis guy, I guess. So got make sure not to steal Jayson's thunder. So we're gonna do the background for both of them. And Jayson, you ready to get rolling with it?
Sure.
I'm really stoked to find out which of these you prefer.
Yeah.
You want to wait and reveal that?
I think I want to wait and reveal that.
Okay, cool. Because I think I know. I think I had a sense watching them with you which one you probably liked more. I know which one you laughed at more often.
Yeah.
And I would think that would. I mean, they're comedies.
Right.
I would think that would probably tell me which was the better show. But there are certainly other things to appreciate about these besides just the jokes and the visual gags and stuff. So
yeah. So I'm gonna start with Addams Family.
Yeah. And that's the first one we'll watch too.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, sorry. If you're watching, welcome if you're watching live, and thanks for watching after the fact as well, as always. And if you are watching live right now, just so you know where you can watch these shows, let's get that out of the way so that people can look them up as you're talking. Yep. You can watch the Addams Family on YouTube. MGM has a channel, an official channel, and they have the entire show. Did you know there was only 2 seasons?
They have the entire show?
They have the whole show. They have both seasons.
Yeah. It was only 2 seasons.
But like before you came into this, did you know it was that short?
I didn't.
It's like Star Trek. Like for something that is as popular as it is, it's shocking how short it is.
Yeah.
Right? And then if you want to watch the Munsters, it is on Peacock, but with commercials. And it's weird because I have premium for Peacock and it still made me watch commercials.
Oh, really?
So I don't know what that's about, but I went ahead and rented, just so that we don't have to stop for commercials, I went ahead and rented the pilot on Amazon. And that's $2 over there if you want to watch it with us without commercials. Yep. And otherwise, apologies, but you're going to end up with commercials. So anyway, take it away, Jayson.
Okay, so The Addams Family first aired in 1964 on ABC. It was an adaptation of.
And where was the Munsters?
The Munsters.
What are the rival networks?
CBS. The show is an adaptation of Charles Addams' art. David Levy, he was the main producer of the show. He went to Addams for the idea of a show based on his cartoons for the New Yorker, and Addams gave the characters names, and he also helped with casting. Because the characters originally in the comic strips didn't have names.
I didn't know that.
And so he gave them names for the show. The Hall of Languages building at Syracuse University was the inspiration for the exterior of the house. And the interior...
Now, when you say inspiration, did they actually shoot it and redress it or something?
No,
or did
I don't think so.
Is it a matte painting or is there an actual?
A matte painting.
Okay. Because the Munsters looks like it has an actual house.
Yeah, it is. And
we're gonna talk about that.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about
cool.
that, yeah.
I'm excited.
And the inspiration for the interior was Charles Addams' house or his apartment because it was filled with like suits of armor and like a crossbow collection and like other weird stuff. So they decided to just put random stuff in the Addams Family house.
I'm just imagining him now as Michael Keaton Bruce Wayne from '89. Like, yeah. It's Japanese. How do you know that? Because I bought it in Japan. He sounds eccentric, like Tim Burton.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen pictures of Tim Burton's house?
No.
He looks like he lives at the Addams Family house.
Oh. So almost the entire set for the house was pink because it shot better in black and white. I guess I don't know if a lot of sets were like that when it's, you know, shot in black and white.
Mm-hmm.
If most sets were pink.
Yeah,
I mean,
I've never heard that.
I've heard that they do, because I've heard that they do film better in black and white, but I don't know how many interiors were actually just pink.
And that's really interesting in contrast to the Munsters, which was nearly color in the first place.
Mm-hmm. The only reason they didn't make it color was
Addams Family?
Munsters.
Munsters, yeah.
The only reason they didn't make it color is because they didn't want to spend the $10,000 per episode to make it color.
Wow, why would it cost that much?
I don't know.
Because you would just shoot it in color in the first place, right? So, like, was it more expensive cameras?
I think it's just... Or it's like...
Because it's not Technicolor. They're not recoloring it.
Right.
Or were they?
No,
I don't know why you.
So.
I don't know why you would do it like that. We shot Batman in color 2 years after that. Star Trek.
I think it might have been just like trying to like get it on the like on air in color. I thought that might have been
that cost more.
Somehow that cost more.
Maybe so. I don't know.
I don't know.
If so, that's news to me. But yeah, you were right on the cusp now where some shows were finally starting to premiere in color, and color TVs were more expensive. And so, you know, not everybody had one yet, and people were just slowly starting to move over. And that's why Batman and some other shows in '66 around '66 made a big deal out of in color.
Yeah.
At the beginning, because when you're watching it now, you're like, yeah, obviously it's in color. But the reason they would do that is so that if you're watching it on a black and white TV, you'd know it might be worth going and getting a color TV now. I'd love to see what this show looks like.
Yeah. Well, and also
with the colors.
Like, that's part of why the Munsters was canceled, because Batman was on and it was in color, and so like they like pushed them off.
Oh wow! And on the same network?
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
That's what Cinema Art said too. He says Batman '66 was one of the reasons the Munsters was canceled because Batman was in color.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I had not heard that before, and I actually questioned a little bit when he said that, and I was really surprised that you have not seen that comment.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
We're corroborating that with your research.
Yeah.
Interesting. So they must have been kicking themselves for not going ahead and staying with color, because it isn't like from the beginning it was definitely going to be black and white. There's an unaired pilot, which we did watch for this.
We did.
We're not going to do the commentary on that. We're going to do it on the aired first episode, but there's a 13-minute. It feels almost more like a sizzle reel or something. Really, it's not even a complete episode.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit more like screen tests or something.
It was like a presentation for Universal to show to the networks.
Yeah, so somewhere in between, like a screen test and a pilot.
Yeah.
But it was, it reminded me a little bit of like, I keep talking about Batman, but it reminded me a little bit of like Adam West screen tests and the other guy that nearly got the role, where like they built, like part of a pseudo cave, and he's in costume and stuff. The costume looked different. Have you ever seen that?
I've never actually seen that.
I'll show you that, because it looked like it was conceptualized to be more serious, and then it got campy right after that.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that when we get there, because I'm sure we'll do Batman at some point.
Sure, we'll do Batman. ABC was originally going to use.
Oh, but sorry, where I was going with that was in. Did I say that? That was in color.
Yeah. So ABC was originally back to Addams Family. ABC was originally going to use like stock library music for the theme song to save money, but Levy insisted on Vic Mizzy to write the song, and so
lucky they did that, because that's a lot of what, I don't want to say a lot of, because there's plenty of iconic stuff about that show, but that's one of the big things, of course, that's iconic about it. The snap more than anything. And that's one of the big things that those two shows have in common, and I think you have to put those themes right on par with each other. I don't think one of those songs is better or worse than the others.
Yeah. And did you know that, like, originally the song didn't have snaps?
No,
and he had to do it, and he did it like while they were recording it, and it wasn't originally gonna have it, and then he improvised having snaps.
And then that became a whole thing where the entire family does it on screen.
Yeah,
that's cool.
And he actually directed that opening as well.
That's neat. Now,
they were just like, just do it yourself.
Now, I say I don't think one is better than the other. I mean, like, technically, and as far as being iconic goes, I like the Munsters theme more. just as a personal taste thing, because again, I grew up with that real hard.
Yeah.
And I think that theme is like 90% of the reason that I'm not even a Munsters fan, but that like I've never seen the whole show. I don't know it super well.
Yeah.
I don't know it very well at all, to be honest with you. But like my dad was a huge fan of it, so growing up, like I thought about the Munsters more than Addams Family because I didn't really watch that show, like I said. But it was all the theme.
Yeah.
And I like surf rock.
Yeah. So, and we're gonna watch the pilot and we'll see the scene, but the scene where he has the model trains crashing.
Yeah.
They only had one take to do that.
I bet.
And so they used that same thing every time. They used the same clip of the model trains crashing every time the model trains crashed in the show.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So they didn't come back and do it again?
No, it just did it the same
So
time.
what, did they like rebuild the train set so that he'd have it there and then they just kept pretending like it crashed?
Yeah.
So that became, I didn't know that either.
I didn't realize that actually was a gag, but apparently it is.
So that becomes stock footage, like, again, with Batman, like Batman and Robin coming down the bat poles and driving the car out of the cave and atomic batteries to power turbines to speed. Like, that's really funny.
This is a well-known fun fact, but I thought I'd put it in anyway.
Sure.
So Lurch originally wasn't gonna have any lines for the show, and then he improvised the "You rang" line when he had the bell, and they really liked it, and so they changed the entire thing to have him have lines.
Is that the only thing he ever says? He says other things, right?
No, he does say other
Does he say
things.
other things in the pilot? I don't remember.
Yeah, he does.
It is a catchphrasey sort of show.
It is.
I don't think, at least with this first episode, it relies on that too much. And I wonder how the rest of the show watches, because a lot of the writing I found really clever, but it is surprisingly catchphrasey.
Right, and even
like,
when
you rang and thank you thing and
and this wasn't even in the pilot, but I even knew this before, but Tish, that's French.
Yep. That's in the movie too. And of course, all of that stuff is retooled and brought back for, depending on who you are, I guess, clever effect in Wednesday, in a real, because it's the Smallville guys that made that show, in a real Smallville kind of way, where like they're kind of rebooting and reinventing it. So there's a whole thing with the snaps in that show.
Oh.
Like the snaps do a thing. I think they I can't remember. I think they open a secret passageway or something. I forget. But anyway. I'm excited to do that pilot at some point because I wonder what you'll think of it. I've only watched about half that show. I need to get back to it. I think that show has a dynamite pilot.
So the pilot of Addams
Yeah,
Family
apologies. Go ahead.
was directed by Arthur Hiller, who directed a few episodes of Climax.
What is that?
It was I don't think it was like a spooky show, but it was kind of like spooky sci-fi type show from the 50s.
Was it anthology?
I don't know.
Was it like
actually.
Twilight Zone and Outer Limits, or
I'm not sure.
I've never
I've never actually
heard of
seen
that.
it, but I've heard of it.
Just based on this research, or had you heard of it before?
No, I've heard of it before, just because it has an exclamation mark in the title. That's why I was like, oh yeah, I know what that is.
I'm really sick of you knowing everything, even like way before your time and my time. Like it bothers me. Oh no, I've heard of Climax.
And he directed a few episodes of Perry Mason and Alfred Hitchcock.
My dad's favorite show.
Presents. Oh.
My dad is begging me to have him on when we do Perry Mason.
Okay, cool.
I kind of wish he was here for this.
Yeah.
Because again, he's a big Munsters guy.
The Addams.
You said
Family
Perry Mason and what else?
and Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
Which we kicked around doing this month.
Yeah.
I don't think it's gonna happen now, but
Yeah.
we were gonna do that in Twilight Zone together for this show.
Yeah. And
but,
Twilight Zone's a half-hour show before season 5, right?
Yeah.
And then it's an hour show.
I didn't know it went to an hour.
Yeah, because they just randomly canceled it because it wasn't doing that well, and so they went up to an hour, I think. I
What,
think
to
that's
just
what happened.
finish up all the episodes? Or
No.
did you get 2? Like, what?
No.
Oh, okay,
No.
okay.
No, they just made it, like, longer episodes.
Cinemart says Climax also did. He also put the exclamation
that's
mark
why.
in there. The first ever live action adaptation of James Bond with Casino Royale.
That's why I knew that.
Oh.
That's why I knew that. Okay.
'Cause you're a big
I remember
Casino
what it
Royale
is.
fan.
Now I remember what it is. So it's a thing that does adaptations sometimes. I don't know if that's the whole thing, but the show does some adaptations of like stories, and that was the
cool.
first of 3 live action adaptations of Casino Royale. And I've always wanted to watch all 3 of those.
Yeah.
And like compare them to the book as well.
That's the problem with the pilot show is if that's not the pilot, we're not going to get to do it here. But
I think it's the 2nd episode.
wow, that's really interesting. I didn't know about that. That's why we're doing the show. We're going to learn so much.
The Addams Family was ranked 23rd on Nielsen ratings and had a rating of 23.9.
23rd. What does that mean?
It was ranked 23rd of that year.
Oh, in overall ratings?
Yeah, in overall ratings.
Okay. Do you know what the viewership was on night 1?
I don't.
Is that what you were saying?
I don't.
When you said it had 23... I'm sorry.
23.9.
Oh, I see. That was the rating. Okay.
Yeah, that was a rating
Yeah.
for season 1. So I'm not sure about the first night.
But you don't know what how many viewers watched first night?
I don't know.
Okay.
And now the Munsters notes.
Yeah, there's some really interesting stuff in there.
Yeah. So the Munsters aired, we said, 1964, same year as Addams Family.
Now, did you check the dates? How far apart did they air? Was it
week.
like 1 week?
1 week. I can't remember which one came first. I think it was Munsters, but I can't remember.
And they weren't on the same night, were they? Of the week?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's not. And then it aired on CBS. The idea of a monster family was suggested by the writers of The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle and Friends.
Okay.
And Universal decided to change the characters that the writers had written to characters like Frankenstein and Dracula, because originally they had written like their own characters, and then they changed it.
So it would have been more like Addams Family.
Yeah.
But they wanted it to be maybe more recognizable.
Yeah.
That might have been smart in the long run.
I think it would.
I don't want to get too far away from Addams Family before I read this comment real quick, but Darren Root says, fun fact, the actor of Lurch kind of hated his role due to being the only one he could get due to his height. And I'm glad he brought that, and that's real sad, of course, because there just wouldn't be a whole lot of parts available to you.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about that is that both the Lurch from this show and the Lurch in the 90s, if I'm remembering this correctly, I didn't go back and look this up again, but so correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, but both of them have Star Trek connections, also because they play roles in Star Trek. Due to how tall they are. Yeah. So the guy who plays Lurch in this is the giant android, I think his name is Rook, in What Are Little Girls Made Out Of? Pardon me. And then the Lurch from the 90s movie plays Mr. Home in the Laxana Troy episodes of TNG.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, okay.
And he has a lot of bit roles all over 90s TV and movies, because anytime you did need somebody that tall, that's who showed up for it.
Yeah.
He got a lot of that kind of stuff.
And Lurch from Addams
So I wonder if he worked more than the TV show Lurch, but yeah.
And Lurch from Addams Family, from the show, has a window cameo in a Batman 60s episode.
Does he really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that. I wonder which episode that is.
I can't remember. I looked it up. But...
And then I don't know who the new one is in Wednesday.
Yeah.
And he hasn't gotten a lot to do because the whole family's not in most of that show. But you get a cool, in the pilot, you get a cool car shot of the whole family, and there is a Lurch there. And I'm sure he shows up after that, but I haven't seen that whole show yet, so... Oh, I'm excited for you to see what Thing does in that.
Yeah. So we talked about this a little bit.
I don't know when we're gonna watch it, but
the idea of a monster family, or no, I already did that. The show first got an unaired pilot, in color, and then my sources were
which we just talked about a minute ago.
My sources were a bit mixed up.
We're back to the Munsters now.
The Munsters. So my sources got a bit mixed up. I'm not sure which one is which.
Oh.
So they either made 4 unaired pilots or 2 unaired pilots, and I don't know which one.
Good lord.
I think it's 2. I think one of them is wrong because there aren't any sources for it or anything.
4 sounds real excessive.
Yeah.
If it was that many, did they just keep recycling out the wife and the kid over and over again? Because that's what happened with the pilot we watched. There's a different actress who plays the same character with a different name.
Yeah.
She's Phoebe. And then you had a different Eddie.
Yeah.
And it's a good call that they recast him.
Yeah.
Nothing against that kid. I think it was less his fault and more what they gave him to do, because he was just like a whiny brat, like jumping on top of things and screaming at everything, and the Eddie in the pilot doesn't do that.
No.
Now, maybe they give him things to do in the show later where he's obnoxious, but at least in the... Because the thing is, the unaired pilot is not even the same story, and again, it's not a complete episode either. You remember? We're saying, but I mean, we just watched it.
Yeah.
You remember?
Yeah.
Like, it's none of the same story except for the guy Marilyn's with at the beginning.
At the beginning.
That's a similar scene, but anyway.
But they're setting up in the...
Jason's like, I'm like, you just watched it.
In the pilot, they're setting up, or in the unaired pilot, they're setting up the like the love potion thing, that story, and that story is the story of episode 2.
Yeah. Which we didn't watch for this.
I think they did love potions for different characters than what they were going to do for... I don't even know.
Okay.
The exterior of the Munsters' home was a mansion in Mockingbird Heights, which was built for the 1946 romantic film So Goes My Love. And the house was...
That must be why it's Mockingbird Lane, right?
Yeah.
Because in the show, isn't it...
I'm pretty sure it is, yeah.
Isn't it canonically Mockingbird Lane?
Yeah. And that building kept, like, falling apart and, like, getting back up because they kept having to, like, rebuild it because it was
crazy.
Being used in other TV shows and movies.
Interesting.
So they had to keep, like, yeah.
Was it sort of dilapidated?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's
why they wanted to use it.
Yeah.
Because it looks busted up and ancient, and it has to be a house that looks like people could have lived in for hundreds of years because the Munsters are supposed to be that old.
Yeah. It was used in TV shows like Shirley and Dragnet.
Oh, it's in Dragnet.
Yeah, it's in Dragnet. I don't know what episode, or if that's...
All these shows we'll have to get to us at some point. You know, we should have just made this show the 60s pilot show.
Yeah.
This seems to be the era that... Am I right about this? This seems to be the era you're most interested in.
Yeah, I think so.
We'll see if it stays that way.
So we have a Star Trek connection in the director of the Munsters.
Is that
pilot.
right? Who is it?
So it's Lawrence Dobkin.
That name doesn't ring a bell. I mean, I probably saw it on screen when we watched this, but I don't know if Star Trek.
He directed a couple episodes of Gilligan's Island and the Andy Griffith Show, and he also directed Charlie X.
Charlie X.
And...
Okay, so real early. So that would have been just 2 years after this, because that's the, what?
Second episode.
4th or 5th episode?
Second aired episode, but...
Is it the second aired? Yeah. You had Mantrap and then Charlie X?
Yep.
And they kept an audience? Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
Well, I mean I like that episode.
Those are both great episodes, but like they're both creepy and would maybe put you off. I mean, it makes it look like a horror show in space if you watch those in a row. No, those are both great, but
yeah,
not knocking Charlie X.
And he played Ambassador Kell in The Mind's Eye in Next Generation.
Really?
Yeah.
He's a Romulan?
Yes.
Fascinating.
Because he was also an actor.
So he's also an actor. Okay, cool. Mind's Eye is a great episode.
The ratings for Munsters were the Munsters was ranked 18th and had a rating of 24.7.
Wow.
And the show was tied with Gilligan's Island.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, it was above
It played
Addams Family.
better than Addams Family.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I wonder how much of that had to do with just, again, recognizable iconography.
Yeah.
The theme song, the night it was aired versus the night Addams Family was aired, if they were on different nights. We should have looked that up. But
I know. I know one came before the other one, but I'm not sure. They must have been different nights, right?
I would think so.
Like, there's no...
But yeah, one might have been a better primetime spot.
Yeah.
You know, like, easier for people to find time to watch it.
Right.
Okay, well, thanks for all that background.
Yeah.
Those were all some very interesting tidbits and facts. So let's go ahead and get into the shows. We're going to watch Addams Family first. And I guess now that we're going to go ahead and start watching it, I'm going to assume that this was your favorite over the two pilots.
Yeah.
So if we're saying Addams Family versus Munsters, for your personal taste, Addams Family is winning?
Yeah. I think so. It's a little bit more creative, and it made me laugh harder.
Can I say I was not expecting that?
Yeah.
Because again, I expected to like Munsters more, and that Addams
too.
Family just would. Because for whatever reason, those characters just on paper have never grabbed me though real hard. Like I always liked the movie because I thought it was super inventive and atmospheric, and the soundtrack is amazing.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, everybody loves Wednesday, but I knew she'd be different in the show than she was in the movie, so I never wanted to try to compare it like that. And then I watched this, and I was like, nah, I see why people love these characters.
Yeah.
And the best thing about, we'll talk about this as we watch it, but the premise is genius.
Yeah.
That you have this juxtaposition, this kind of anachronism, where it's this macabre, morbid seeming family, but the parents, especially Gomez, like shockingly good role models.
Yeah.
That's what's amazing about it, is like it's a functioning family. It's like the perfect Leave It to Beaver family in the way they act and treat people. Like they're the nicest, most polite people in the world, and they're like setting a great example for everybody around them that is, many of them, superficial and looking down on them just because of what they look like. It's got this great, like, don't judge a book by its cover kind of message.
Yeah.
And so there's like this weird edge and wholesomeness to it all at the same time.
Yeah.
Where like, and you can never 100% tell if that family is as wholesome as they seem. Like it seems like they just want the best for their kids, and it's again, as parents and a married couple, especially, those two are like, again, great role models, what everybody, you know, should aspire to be.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, that whole family could be axe murderers.
Yeah.
Like, maybe they just treat each other great.
Yeah.
But in the background, something really awful and horrifying is happening. Yeah. That's what's fun about it. Like, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
But anyway, so you said you thought it was... We'll go ahead and start watching it. So you said you thought it was more creative.
Yeah, I thought it was, too. Because it wasn't just monsters. Like, they're not, like, a monster family. They're just kind of, you know, a little more, like, creepy and, like, have a different way of looking at things.
Yeah. And there's more of a mystery about them.
Yeah.
Right? Like, is any of them... And that was kind of the big difference I noticed between them two. And, you know, if you watch more of these shows, I'm sure with Addams Family it'll become clearer. But you have a lot of outright magic and supernatural stuff in the Munsters.
Yeah.
In a way you don't really with Addams Family.
Yeah.
Is there anything with that show that's like straight up supernatural? But, well, besides Thing.
Right.
I guess Thing is supernatural because he's a walking hand. But I mean, even with that, like, you don't see him in the pilot get out of the box and move around.
No.
But the implication is that he's a disembodied hand.
Yeah. Well, and what's funny about that also is the guy who, I can't remember his name, but the guy who did that, did the hand.
Yeah.
Did the thing. As a joke, he would keep like switching hands.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's great. All right, well, are you ready to go ahead and start watching The Addams Family?
Yeah.
We'll talk about this a little bit more in depth, and then we'll watch the Munsters pilot. And this was the actual pilot
Yes.
for this show.
Yeah.
But Munsters, we're going to watch what they actually aired, but there was actually some stuff they shot before that.
Yeah.
Okay, get it to timestamp 0, and like I said, you can watch this on YouTube, or however else you might have access to it. Get it to timestamp 0 and get ready to press play when I say now. I'm going to start the clock on the screen, so you can rig up with us if you need to anytime during this. Oh, Cinema Arts, yeah, good call. He says eventually there's Cousin It. Yeah, Cousin It's not in the pilot and not referred to. Do you know about Cousin It? Crazy, hairy guy that doesn't have a face behind his hair.
Oh. Weird.
Yeah, that's another big difference between this and the Munsters. The Munsters is a smaller cast.
Yeah, it is. This just like with the pilot, like they're like, oh, you need to talk to this person. Oh, you need to talk to this person. Like it just keeps going.
Well, and the variety gives you a lot more versatility and jokes, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get into it. Here we go. Everybody, please press play right now.
The Addams Family.
Hold on. I thought I switched it. There we go. So you don't get the full theme yet. But they clearly have written it.
Yeah.
And the Munsters, you do get the whole theme. So one thing that's also kind of similar between the two... Oh, I forgot that Thing comes out of the mailbox and is technically the first character you see.
Yeah.
And then you have a sign that says, "Beware of the Thing." And I guess the stock laughing track audience is already familiar enough with the material that they get the joke, because I don't know how you would.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know what "Beware of the Thing" mean. Like, maybe the implication is supposed to be that what you just saw is what the
Was
sign's
the
about.
thing, yeah.
But I didn't get that, even knowing what Thing is.
Right.
So, yeah. Okay, so when he walks on the pieces of grass, I don't know what the sound effects are about. Like, I don't know what's actually happening there. But yeah, one thing the two pilots have in common is that there's a device used to introduce you to the setting and the characters, which is someone from the outside is kind of our eyes in, comes in and experiences the weirdness of everything going on inside.
Yeah,
and
which
both
I think-
pilots do that.
And I think that's a great idea for a pilot.
Yep, I do too. But this is more effective about it
Yeah.
because it happens all at once, and we don't even know who the principal characters are yet. Like, we're not... Besides the Thing, we're not introduced to anybody besides this guy right away.
Yeah.
Whereas in the Munsters, you start with Marilyn, although that's smart too, because she looks like a normal person.
Yeah.
Something else that this pilot has over the Munsters, besides just art design, oh my god,
Yeah.
is comedic timing, particularly with visual gags.
Yeah.
I was so impressed with... Well, first of all, just being a sitcom, I think the humor for this pilot is more sophisticated.
Yeah, I think it is too.
Overall,
Yeah.
there's some maybe like kind of typical sitcom stuff here and there, but more of it with the Munsters. With this, how impressive is it that you're opening a scene? A lot of the jokes that we have the canned laugh track about aren't even anything anybody says.
Yeah.
It's all just set pieces. It's just stuff we put
Yeah.
in the scene. I think that's great. And one of the funniest things in the scene is, and then we get real clever with the dialogue too, with Antoinette and all that. Like that's great. And then like she's gonna go bury it in the backyard, and her mother says, "Go have fun, dear." It's great. But one of the funniest things in the scene to me is the comedic timing with the bear rug.
Yeah. Yeah.
He steps on it, growls, we're laughing, and then you see something else that freaks him out, and then he walks back, he steps on it again, it growls again. Like that's great. Yeah, go ahead.
And Addams, the guy who made Addams Family.
Yeah.
She was chosen from him. Like he's the one who chose
Cast her?
Cast her.
Oh, wow. Now, like Munsters, was there anybody that they started with and then they switched sometime in the process, or did they have everybody from the beginning?
They had everyone from the beginning.
There are obviously like genius casting choices in the Munsters principal cast, and that show does not work without what's his name, Fred Gwynn.
Yeah.
But the couple in this show is one of the best in sitcom history.
Yeah.
In their on-screen chemistry.
Yeah,
Like,
I think it's really good.
They're spectacular together. And you know what it kind of watched like to me? It watched like a pseudo-horror parody. And I mean, like, it's different, of course, because this is not a dysfunctional family.
Yeah.
But it almost played like a pseudo-horror parody of something like I Love Lucy.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
I guess I'm just saying Gomez himself feels like almost a parody of Desi Arnaz.
Yeah. And I've never actually seen that show.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was wonderful.
Yeah.
But that's probably only, like, the second, like, Hispanic TV. I think he's Hispanic. He's like Spanish, but sorry, not Hispanic, because Arnaz is Cuban, but I mean like not non-white or like Spanish characters. I'm sure he's only the second one.
Yeah.
And so it feels like it's almost intentional. That was only a few years before after that. The best line in the episode is right here.
Yeah.
Did you not think this was the funniest thing in the episode? When he says,
hilarious.
when Hilliard says, you want him to explode? And he says, why else would a grown man play with trains? Spectacular. I just love how wholesome he is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great.
Bob Garland, we did talk about that earlier, about how they had a different wife for Herman on the Munsters, but that's what I was talking about with this show, is if they had any changes like that. And then the most profound thing anybody says in this pilot, and I'm sorry, but I can't really say there's any profundities in the Munsters, really, with this, and they're different kinds of humor, I think, you know what I mean? Like, they probably also appealed to different audiences to some degree.
Yeah.
But when Gomez says, why have children just to get rid of them?
Yeah.
Oh boy, that resonates with me so hard.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a father of 5, about to be 6, and we homeschool, and I don't want to get political, but I have issues, of course, with the public education system, and I feel like my kids are liable to reach closer to their full potential if I have a little bit more control, my wife and I, over what they learn, and Gomez feels the same way, and I love how it's all rooted in culture.
Yeah.
You know, the actual education that they are getting at home. And then that line where he says, like it's such a sharp script.
Yeah, I think that's kind of also what I really like about this compared to Munsters. Is Munsters, like, it is funny, but it's not, it's not as...
It's a different brand of humor. And I'm going to disagree with Cinema Artist because he says the Munsters was more satirical in its humor. I didn't feel that way. I felt like this was more satirical, more socially satirical. The Munsters, it seems a little bit more about kind of typical sitcom situations, with like mistaken identity plots and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
This seemed to be going kind of right after an issue.
Yeah.
You know, public education, bad parenting, like
Yeah.
that's pretty satirical. But that line where he goes, "What does a kid?" And I mean, I don't agree with this, but it's funny because I mean, like, I think some kids can read at a super early age.
Right.
But when he says, like, what is a kid? Well, I guess I do agree with this sentiment a little bit. When he says, what does a kid need to read at 6? Or, like, what is there for him? Meaning, like, children's literature isn't the best, maybe? Maybe that's what he's talking about?
Yeah. I think that's hilarious.
That line reading is brilliant. When he says, that's a closet.
Yeah.
He accidentally walks into a closet.
Also,
And, like,
there's Aunt Harriet.
Aunt Harriet is in that scene, yeah. I wonder if she comes back or if that was a one-time. That was probably a one-time.
I think it was
role.
one time.
But yeah, we were both really surprised to see her.
Yeah.
I get excited when I recognize people in this period.
Yeah.
But yeah, when he says like what does a kid need to read it at 6, and then the guy says, well, but someday he'll be 26, and then the best possible comeback. Well, I'll see you then.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. The back and forth, the comebacks, they're so good.
Yeah. And also, something I like more about this than the Munsters is I feel like the Munsters sometimes they put the laughing tracks at places that aren't funny. Like, I don't think that's funny at all, and why, like, I don't even know why anyone would laugh at that, because that's just something that, like, is
it's a normal thing that's happening.
Yeah.
It's kind of absurd. This pilot has that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of more in, I don't know why the audience would get the joke until they saw the whole episode.
Yeah.
More than, like, the sign that says, beware of the thing, for instance, is funny.
Yeah.
But you don't know what it means yet.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird that you're laughing. Like, the way the canned laughter is laughing, which is a weird thing to complain about because there's not an actual audience.
Yeah.
So none of the people you're listening to laughing are actually laughing at that. I like the gag of the music changing every time they hit Lurch.
Yeah.
And the harpsichord music is pretty great.
Yeah. And them, like, tapping him on the shoulder, and then he plays something different.
Yep. That's really funny. This set is amazing.
It is.
And there's some great stuff with the Munster sets, too. But I feel like it's maybe not fair to compare them, but that's the exercise. Did this show get more money than the Munsters did? Because, boy, it looks like it to me.
Yeah.
Is it just in the way it's filmed, or am I actually looking at more money on the screen? Because it kind of feels like I am.
It feels like it.
And that surprised me. Because I didn't expect that. I honestly always thought, because I never watched more than like a scene or two of the show when I was a kid, I always thought this show looked flatter than the Munsters. I don't know what I was talking about. It doesn't. But it feels a little more heightened of a universe than the Munsters.
Yeah.
And the little girl's line deliveries are great.
Yeah.
Thank you thing is fantastic. Just the way she says that. Pugsley doesn't have the presence that she does, but he doesn't also get a bunch to do.
He doesn't that much in this.
In at least the pilot. Maybe he comes alive more a little bit later. But there's so much confidence from every aspect of this from the very beginning. Like, it reminds me a lot of the Beverly Hillbillies pilot, which shocked me going back to in how much of that show they had figured out already from the beginning. And I'll say right now, this is only our 4th show. We will have done 5 pilots. This is easily, hands down, the best written and executed pilot of the things we've done so far.
Yeah.
Easily, by like a wide margin, I think. And a lot of the stuff that became real iconic that everybody remembers about the Addams Family is in this pilot, which is maybe not surprising because when we remake things, we very often will only go back to the pilot and not bother looking at anything else. The Underdog movie has that. Power Rangers 2017 kind of has that. Addams Family didn't, though. And one of the big things that they sold that movie real hard on was Christopher Lloyd as Fester. Do you remember that? Did you know that? He's Fester and he's great.
Oh my God.
he does the light bulb thing. That very scene, and I was surprised to see that in the pilot. I was like, oh, he puts the light bulb in his mouth and it glows like in the first episode. Okay,
Yeah.
that's great.
Also, there was another Addams Family movie with Tim Curry as Gomez.
With
In
Tim
the
Curry
90s?
well, there's a sequel, and Gomez was replaced because that actor died.
Oh.
Raul Julia, I think. I think he passed away. But I didn't know Tim
Yeah.
Curry replaced him.
Yeah, that's Tim Curry.
That's not quite right, but I'd be interested to go back and watch it, because I've seen that movie, but not since it came out. Not since the 90s.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I didn't like the main plot of that movie, where, like, Fester marries like gold digging lady who like keeps him in her house and won't let him leave, and
What?
that it seemed like kind of a weird typical plot
Yeah.
that didn't fit this material great, but
That seemed more like a like the I'm not sure. That seems more kind of like a Friends plot, or like a 90s sitcom kind of plot.
that's what I'm saying. That's what I mean by typical. Aunt Harriet here is just being Aunt Harriet.
Yeah.
it's the exact performance. I also like that this guy that this truant officer goes through the whole episode. It's like it's a whole thread where he's the guest star. Because I really thought from the beginning that he was just going to walk in, be freaked out by what's in the house, and run off.
Yeah.
And ultimately that happens at the end. But he's the kind of thread that runs through the whole episode. And I also like that it kind of creates an occasion for story for the whole show. Like, I don't know if the show will be as, for lack of a better word, serialized as something like Beverly Hillbillies. Because one thing that's great about that show is it remembers what happens episode to episode, and, like, immediately refers back to things that happened previously. Like, you can watch it in any order, but if you're paying it, it's about as serialized as, like, first season Power Rangers. Like, it keeps up with stuff that's happened.
Wow, that's kind of crazy.
And yeah, and I don't know if this show does that, but it does feel like we actually broke a status quo. Like, the kids... And that's really great for a pilot like this, because it gives you a reason to start looking in on this family now, right? The kids haven't been going to school. The truant officer shows up. Now they have to go to school, and now there's a show. Because there's a reason for these characters to have to get out of their house.
Yeah.
And there wouldn't be much of a show if we just stayed here all the time.
Yeah.
The dubbing there was real
Dubbing
awkward.
there is, yeah.
Like, she runs in, and maybe they just didn't mic it right, so they had to go back in and ADR it.
Yeah.
But when Wednesday runs up the stairs, but it doesn't sound great.
Yeah.
Grim Death Griffin, this feels like an early attempt at shock value in a show. I'm enjoying the visual of it, though. Shock value. Yeah, that's not really how I'm watching it. I mean, one of the running gags naturally that both shows have, and I think this is more successful at it also, is the idea that the Addamses looking like they're straight out of a horror movie and liking macabre things think everybody else are the weird ones.
Yeah.
And occasionally in this pilot we do that joke where it's like, oh, that person's kind of weird. We do that with the truant officer.
Yeah.
Where it's like, isn't he strange? And then Aunt Harriet, oh, you noticed that too? Yeah, that's really funny. Munsters is more tongue-in-cheek about it in a kind of obvious way that I wasn't as impressed with.
Yeah.
As with this, where it's like kind of just constant line after line of, oh, that guy has a weird hairdo. Like, haha, the joke is you look like Frankenstein. You have a weird Frankenstein's monster. You have a weird haircut. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they do that joke like over and over and over again. Yeah. Addams Family is more sparing about that, or uses it more sparingly.
They base it more off of like more like normal people to them are weird, whereas like like, that is the case with Munsters.
Yeah.
But it's more based on, like, looks. Where, like, oh, like, people, like, isn't everyone, like,
And you're right when you say that, because
vampires?
everything about that show is a little bit more surface than this.
Yeah.
And that's why I say, no disrespect to the commenter, but this is the more satirical of the two. Because, like I said, this show goes right at the social issues. Surprisingly, I didn't expect that. I don't know I don't know what it does after this. I want to start watching it.
Yeah.
I feel remiss now in having never gone through the show.
Yeah, I think this would be a really fun show to go through.
And then nice callbacks, you know,
Yeah.
or like running gags that don't feel cheap, you know, like
Right.
that rug could get old episode after episode, but so far in just this one, coming back to it, it's funny again.
Yeah.
And Munsters has the cat, which kind of does that,
Yeah.
but I think the bird is kind of more that same joke, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like every now and again it's gonna pop out and do something, just
Yeah.
like when you step on the rug. But anyway, going back to the satirical thing, suddenly it becomes the Addamses versus the school system in their wanting to censor books because they're too violent.
Yeah.
And I'm like, at first I'm cringing at that a little bit, where I'm like, okay, well, if the Addams win this at the end, then the characters that we're supposed to enjoy watching and sympathizing with are calling to basically ban books. But the joke of they're violent because the regular world just doesn't understand these creatures and people that we typically think of as horrible, because they're just not looking any deeper. That's the point of it. The point is not censorship is good.
Right.
You know, and then at the end, I think and it took me a couple of viewings before I understood this. I think the joke at the end is supposed to be the truant officer doesn't agree with the Addamses that Grimm's fairy tales needs to be banned. He gets it done for them so that he never has to come back to this house again.
Yeah.
I think that's the joke.
Yeah.
And so it's supposed to be funny because the Addams are winning in getting their worldview out to the world and making changes. Mm-hmm. And even though I don't like censorship, I find myself kind of appreciating that, because even though they have a weird, horror-esque style, they seem like better people than everybody else.
Yeah. I love the fact that, like, they're like, oh, Grimm, that's a cool, creepy name, and then, like, the fairy tales themselves, they don't like.
Yeah,
like
that's true. It's like, well, you started on the right foot. I mean, you read the rest of the fairy tale, and it's like, but she was gonna kill the children.
Yeah.
But it's funny. Like, I get it. Because the first time I watched this, I was like, okay, where are they going with this? When he says, I think you've got something. He's trying to get out of the house.
Yeah.
And then it becomes, he wants to make sure he never has to go back. I think. It's really impressive, the sheer number of gags we get in the show. Like, it's really, really tight.
Yeah, well, and it's not, like, overdone. Like, there are a lot of gags, like, it's not, like, it is gag after gag, but it's also funny.
And it feels, and the reason it's funny, I think, is because the timing and the frequency of it feels like it's almost scientific.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, a lot of thought was put into how often is a gag going to come back.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. So again, going back to the thing with the rug, and then going back to the bell that shakes the whole house.
Yeah.
And one of the things yeah, go ahead.
And what's funny about that is that in that scene they do it like 4 times because he's like so sick of it, and it just keeps like shaking the camera.
And yeah, it's just such a cool, odd feeling to be like, oh, you wish your family was like this.
Yeah.
But then look at all the creepy, strange things they do.
Yeah.
You know? And so, like I said, I really like the don't judge a book by its cover thing. And I think that's why it's that 50s perfect family, but they feel like the right kind of perfect, because it isn't, you know, you look at something like Leave It to Beaver and you're like, well, you know, this family doesn't exist, can't exist. And then you look at this and you're like, they don't feel perfect because they're so weird.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's really endearing, because something like Leave It to Beaver is, this is what a family is supposed to be like, and we can't, regular people can't achieve that. So in the 50s, they're watching it thinking, this is what we're supposed to be like, this is what regular people are supposed to be like, and then some people would get really depressed over not being able to attain that.
Yeah.
And it was kind of about conformity. It was like, this is what everybody's supposed to look like. Mm-hmm. This is, nobody is supposed to look like this, but they've got it more together than any of the rest of us. I love that.
You, do you know what's really funny? You keep mentioning Leave It to Beaver.
Yeah.
The creators of that show
Yep.
wrote most of the Munsters.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Well, and of course, that's one of the things they really have in common, is that they're both looking at and trying to subvert to some degree that kind of material, or put a new spin on it. I think Addams Family is subverting it, and Munsters is maybe running with it a little bit more, not turning it on its head so much, except just having a weird spin, having a weird trappings of it, and then adding a supernatural component. Like, Munsters feels like it's looking more at Bewitched or something.
Yeah.
In that it's your supernatural sitcom. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a genre show.
Yeah.
While being a family sitcom.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I don't mean to be down on or dog on the Munsters. I would probably be talking a little bit more. I'd probably be higher on it if we were only doing it today. But watching them together, just and this pilot I've seen a few times. We were watching a little bit of the show just last year. I think we watched probably half the first season.
Yeah.
Right around Halloween. I think we actually started watching it on Halloween.
I think we did.
If memory serves, we had a little Halloween party, and we were watching it while we were giving candy to trick-or-treaters and stuff.
Yeah. And that was, like, I had seen maybe, like, an episode of it before we did that.
Oh, something I wanted to ask you about Addams Family. In your research, do you know if the train thing comes from the original drawings or the comic strip, or if they made that up for the show?
I don't know.
Because I've seen drawings of that, and I just wondered if that idea came before this.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess it's something I can look up later.
I don't know.
Okay, well, let's go ahead now and watch the other pilot for today. We're doing a twofer. We pitted them up against each other. We made it pretty clear which one in our minds is winning.
Yeah.
But
now we can look at the Munsters.
Yeah. And I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna get to the end of this and go, wait, never mind, Munsters is better than Addams Family. But I will have lots of positive things to say about this too. It's really good. They're not, I don't think they're neck and neck, but they're both really good pilots.
Yeah.
You know, it's just one of those things where you wish that you wish the genius kid with the best science experiment didn't show up at the science fair this year.
Yeah.
Because that other kid had a really good volcano, but then he came in with a time machine. I mean, that's kind of what this watch is like to me.
Right.
Okay. I don't know if that was a good analogy, but you know, there it is. Go ahead and pull up the Munsters. I am watching it on Amazon, where I rented it, so I don't have to deal with commercials. But you can watch it on Peacock, where at least for me, I could only watch it with commercials, even though I'm paying for Peacock. So I don't know what that's about. That felt like a ripoff. Let's go ahead and get into this. Cinema Arts, ironically, the new Addams Family CG movies use the original designs, and it looks awful. I didn't think that looked great either. I haven't bothered with that. Yeah. I've heard mixed things about it. Some people seem to like those okay. There's a lot of Addams Family stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot. And there's a lot of...
And a lot more in just the last few years. Like, it's a good time to be an Addams Family fan, I guess. Unless those suck.
I don't know.
Because Wednesday doesn't
I
suck.
saw the, I saw, like, the intro that they did. That they remade the intro from the...
From the TV show?
From the TV show.
For the CG movie?
For the CG movie.
What's that like?
It looks really good.
Oh,
like, it...
Okay.
I don't like what it looks like, but they did a good job remaking that. Like, they did it, like, one-to-one. Like, it looks like that.
Some of the praise Wednesday gets, and again, the whole family's not all over the whole show because it's about her primarily. But some of the praise it gets is they cast it to be closer to the comic strips. So their Gomez looks straight off the comic page.
Wow.
And I forget that guy's name, but I've seen him in things before.
Yeah.
As soon as he popped up, I was like, well, it never occurred to me that he looks like comic book Gomez Addams, but he does.
Wow.
Okay, is everybody ready?
Yes.
AMC says, I just want to talk about the Twilight Zone. Yeah, I don't know if we're going to end up doing that this year, if we're going to stave it off for Halloween time next year. Yeah. But the Twilight Zone isn't like straight up horror or whatever, so we could really do it at any time.
Yeah, okay.
But I still like the idea of putting it with Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
I think that's a good idea.
Now, the obvious thing to do it with, I guess, would be Outer Limits.
Okay, yeah.
As far as which is the better show, because it's more of the same premise. Alfred Hitchcock is more horror premises, but it's still anthology. Mm-hmm. But Outer Limits does more of the O. Henry thing, I think. Mm-hmm. Anyway, here we go. Let's watch the Munsters pilot, and then we'll answer the questions we always answer, and we'll bid you guys farewell right after that. Get ready to press play. I'm about to do it. Here we go. Everybody, please press play right now.
And this doesn't start with... I guess we didn't get the full intro for the Addams Family, but this doesn't start with the intro.
It has a cold open.
Yeah.
And then we do get the intro, which surprised me. I thought it was going to open with no intro at all.
Yeah.
Or just give us a title card like the Addams Family kind of did.
Yeah.
With just a little bit of that intro music. These days, that's all you get for broadcast.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny how we've come back around to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the way this opens where you really don't have any sense, just like with Addams Family, you don't have really any sense of what you're looking at quite yet. You start with regular human looking characters. Mm-hmm. But the difference is with Addams Family, it ramps you up to like crazier and crazier and crazier. And this right away goes, here's the most horror-looking character in the show looking out of a window.
I think that's
just jumps you right in there, and that works too.
I think that's a great way to introduce him.
You think so?
Yeah, where he's just like looking out the window.
There are very few actors that fall into the roles as easily as he seems to.
Yeah.
We're just right away, like, he's got his performance completely down and he never deviates from it from the entire show. This is how he always plays it.
Yeah.
The Munsters also was a short show. Mm-hmm. It didn't get very many seasons either. Was it also 2 or was it 3?
It was also... I know it got canceled because of Batman, which means I guess it's
so it must have been
3.
2.
I mean...
Well, but it might have
yeah,
been. It might have been canceled before Batman even started,
right?
Because Batman was coming.
Yeah.
I thought it was 2. Maybe it's 3. We can look it up, obviously. But but yeah, so this is the joke over and over and over again. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Yeah. Pretty much. And that's the like the line that everyone remembers. I feel like that's the line that I remembered from the pilot, and that was like the first one that they.
Oh, dressing up in costume.
Yeah.
Like, I hate it when people pretend to be something that they're not.
Yeah.
Well, that's not what he says, but where people dress up in silly costumes. And
also, that staircase.
The staircase is amazing. Like, we were talking real hard about production values with Addams Family, but let's not throw Munsters under the bus, because it's got some really
got a
neat
staircase.
set pieces. Yeah, that pops up and Fred Gwynn walks out of it, and then when it comes back down, you cannot tell that it ever opened.
Yeah, and what's cool about it is it's the carpet, which means like there's not even a real good sense of like the line, because it's like the carpet piece goes up and it's not like part of the wood. Like that's what I like about it.
Also, that's amazing. Also, I'm gonna give Munsters the house over Addams Family.
Yeah.
I love their house, and again,
Really?
it's you don't.
I mean,
maybe part of it's because it's practical. We talked about that earlier, but I've always loved that house.
I really like that house too, but it's not the Addams Family house.
You don't like the Addams, or you like the Addams Family house better?
Yeah, and we were just talking about how like the Addams Family house is like kind of crazy.
No, but I'm talking about the exterior.
I don't know about
inside, of course, but I'm just saying. I'll give them the. Maybe I didn't make myself clear enough. I'll give them the outside of the house. Is what I'm saying. No,
yeah,
obviously
I do
interiors.
like the window, yeah.
Bigger set, more going on in Addams Family. One thing I'm curious to look at when I look at more of this show, because I just can't remember, is do they show you that line's hilarious?
That line's hilarious.
When he's talking about the handwriting, they must fall over backwards a lot. I love how absent-minded, just kind of like simple Herman Munster is. Like, he's sort of like, is this going too far? He's Homer Simpson if he didn't drink.
Yeah.
In his intellect.
Yeah.
Right?
I think so.
And of course, my favorite character, like a lot of people's, was always Grandpa Munster. So is I'm confused about this. So Grandpa Munster is not actually anybody's grandpa?
It's hers. It's, Marilyn's.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the way they talk about it later, it's like when somebody's lived with you for hundreds of years, it's like their family, and I'm like, but I thought you were somebody's dad.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
I don't understand that line.
He
then
still lives in their house.
Well, I know, but to say it's like you're part of the family, or do you mean like the immediate part? Like usually your parents don't live with you.
Right.
Is that what that line
that's
is?
what...
Okay, that's a cultural time difference with me, I guess.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, though, I also think that this show is a little, and like intentionally, I guess, like they're doing references and things on purpose, but this show is a little more dated than Addams Family. Like, I feel like Addams Family has more of a timeless quality about it.
Yeah.
The way people treat each other and stuff is obviously of the time. The way it's portrayed in television and movies a lot, in polite high society and all of that. But with this, and this has that too, but this has a lot more like specific cultural references and things, and it has like 60s dance music. All the music that you have in the Addams Family is like classical harpsichord stuff, like funeral music.
Yeah.
And in this, they just do straight up like surf rock and the kitschy pop stuff that was popular in the mid-60s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad thing, but it does make Addams Family, I don't want to even say more watchable, but I do really appreciate the timelessness of it.
Yeah. And I think that him just walking around in that costume is hilarious.
Yeah, so we were talking about visual gags with Addams Family and how impressive it was that a lot of what you're laughing at is just stuff in the set. There is a physical comedy in this show that Addams Family doesn't have as much, so I'll give Munsters that. Yeah. Lurch has it.
Yeah.
Herman is almost like a combination, weirdly, for the humor, you know what I'm going to say, of... like, just because he's the head of the house or whatever, of Gomez and Lurch.
Yeah, especially
he's got that physical...
He's the tall one.
Yeah. All he has to do is stand there, and he's funny.
Yeah. And the clock is hilarious.
It is. With the bird?
Yeah.
There's also more of like a pratfall humor that this show has over Addams Family, not just with Fred Gwynn, but also with Grandpa Munster. Mm-hmm. Because you're also laughing at things that he does physically, not some of it's how he moves too, but more of it's in what he does with his face.
Yeah.
The eye rolls, the like, why do I even have to be here kind of faces.
Yep.
That's great. He's got a style of comedic acting that would have worked great for silent films.
Yeah.
In that pilot, they have this great scene that's almost like a 4 or like 5 minute scene where he's in his laboratory. This is a question I was going to ask you. He's in his laboratory and he doesn't say very much through it, and a lot of it's just him looking through a book and doing potions and stuff.
Yeah.
And he's so much fun to watch. He's the only actor in the scene.
Yeah.
And he just tears it up. He's great. That huge book with the pages, and he wants a potion, but it starts at poison. He's annoyed about that, so he like almost telekinetically makes the pages turn. It's great.
Yeah.
Again,
And
that's
this-
the unaired pilot.
And this does the like the shaky camera thing that's always funny, and I feel like it's just funny in sitcoms, and like the shake the camera thing
Yeah.
can be funny in sitcoms and then really like dramatic in like space operas and
Or
stuff.
also unintentionally funny
Yes.
in space operas. So the question I was going to ask you, I love that he's got a separate potion for Dr.
Also-
Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Yeah, also that I think that was the best joke in the show, in the
The guy that won his first Oscar
Yeah.
for Dr. Jekyll.
Yeah.
Yeah, that line is killer. And I've watched this with you twice now. You laughed both times at that.
yeah.
So, the question I was going to ask you is, do we get to see more of this set in other episodes? Because in that pilot we watched, it's huge.
Yeah.
It's like Batcave sized almost, it seems like. Maybe it's not that big, but like, you're looking at the scale in Addams Family of that front room, and you don't have that scale really in this, but then you come down here and there's a lot more set.
Yeah.
And I'm going to assume that we're in the same place and they'll just show you more of it later,
Yeah.
but I'm actually not sure.
Yeah.
But did you have that thought when they turned the camera in that unaired pilot, where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, this room just keeps going. It looks
Yeah.
like my basement.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But yeah, again, a lot more jokes in this over Addams Family of like, oh, you're dressed up like Little Bo Peep. That's hideous. Like anything wholesome kind of grosses them out.
Yeah.
And with Addams Family, am I right about this? It's kind of less, wholesome looking, clean things are gross and horrible, as it is just the things we like are the opposite of that. You know what I mean? Like, we don't like flowers, we like thorns. But I don't know if they look at flowers and go, ooh, flowers?
Yeah.
Like, they cut them off.
Yeah.
But am I right that that's kind of a distinction?
Yeah.
At least in the pilots. I don't know what it keeps doing after that.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But in this, there's a lot of... And it's funny, but I think I prefer the way Addams Family does it. In this, there's a lot of... Marilyn, she's kind of the ugly duckling of the family. She's like the black sheep. Mm-hmm. We love her, but I don't know why she looks so weird.
And do you like the kids in Munsters better than the kids in the Addams Family? Like, do you like the fact that there's
No.
one that's like older and one that then
Well, I don't
in
think
that
of it
there's-
like that because she's like almost an adult.
right?
And she's not their kid.
Where she's like true,
It's not their daughter.
right?
So they have one kid and then another relative that lives with them.
Yeah,
And then a grandpa that lives with them. So it is the same thing as Addams Family, where it's several members of an extended family all living in a house together. Except Addams Family just has more of them.
yeah,
So again, with the babysitter here, we're using her as a similar device that we did with the truant officer
yeah,
in the Addams Family, and structurally, I guess it works too. I like introducing everybody that way. That was the thing Addams Family had over it for me. But here, it's like we've already met these people, but now we're gonna see just how weird this house is. We start
Yeah.
making the house more of a character. Addams Family seamlessly did all of it at the same time.
yeah.
still effective,
And
but we have to use kind of this extra gonna come in and then leave character
yeah.
to do it instead of the truant officer who just stays all the way.
Yeah. And I think Lily Munster has a different necklace later in the show.
Oh, really?
I don't think it's a bat anymore later on. I think it's like a star or something.
Now that you say that, yeah, maybe it's not.
Yeah.
I thought the idea that Herman is gonna keep his helmet on the whole time so that when he takes it off, it's like this unintended, like, PS resistance moment where everybody goes, oh my god, what a genius costume.
Yeah.
You had a mask on under your mask. I thought that was really clever.
Yeah.
The only problem with it is when you keep going with this show, I think it does get a little bit repetitive. And a little bit formulaic in some of in its plots, and I haven't watched any more Addams Family, so I want to assume that it doesn't do that.
Yeah.
But it may ultimately also have that problem. But with this, it's not a straight up mistaken identity story, but it's similar to one of those, and so it feels a little bit more typical sitcom.
Yeah.
In that we've got to have this miscommunication.
Yeah.
As the foundation for the comedy.
I really like the shot. I think it's like kind of creepy.
Oh yeah.
Where she's like
With the harp?
Through the harp. And then she does the thing with the harp.
I guess the best way to put it is the Addams Family approach is more relationship driven. It's more about establishing in its pilot who these people are and how they feel about each other and what their worldviews are. And this is a little bit less relationship driven. It's a little bit more about the situation, about the plotting. They're both situation comedies, but this has more of an emphasis on that.
Yeah. Also, I didn't catch that joke the first time I watched it.
No, AMC, and I totally agree with you. And I've been thinking that this whole time. He said, in fairness to the Munsters, you're just comparing pilots, so that's not to say which series you'd enjoy more overall. Yeah, exactly. But if Addams Family if that pilot is indicative of the whole show, I just think I like the cut of its jib more. I think I prefer that approach to comedy more. It's a little bit subtler.
Yeah. I didn't catch that joke with the drink going down his costume in the first.
Oh, I didn't either.
Yeah, in the first time I watched it, and then the second time we watched it, I caught it and I was like, oh. And then here, yeah.
I didn't catch until the second time watching this one either just how often see that face. He's so funny. But every time Grandpa Munster tries to bite somebody, I didn't notice how often that happened. Mm-hmm. That's pretty good. Did you have the same thought I did when we first saw this with these dancing scenes? The jokes in here remind me so much of the Muppet Show.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Mm-mm. There's a sketch in most episodes of the Muppet Show where they're at a dance party. And there's some there's a whole series of really terrible pun jokes with all the people dancing. This reminded me of that.
But yeah, like that's really funny where he's just like walking through because they have the sound of it.
Yeah, the sound effect's great, and it's hard to say when the script was written if that moment was supposed to be funny, but he makes it funny. And you easily could have just cut to him being over there already.
Yeah.
But letting it linger and making us wait while he goes, like, it's so funny. And I was surprised. I had what you did with the laugh track with the show. why wasn't there any laughing there?
Right.
And I
That's
kind of
what I had.
appreciated that there wasn't, because I can laugh at it and go, okay, I think that's funny. I don't need to even be told that it's funny.
Yeah.
But then there's places where they're laughing, and I don't know what's funny.
Yeah.
But that's funny. But that's the real typical sitcom idea in this episode to me, is the like, well first you have like I said, miscommunication, and then character that, or like big coincidence.
Yeah.
That's gonna mess up everything later. And so the big coincidence is the other guy dresses like Herman Munster.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, in the
And
Addams
it's
Family,
funny, but you don't want to rely on that too much, I don't think.
right?
But sorry, what were you saying?
Well, in the Addams Family, you don't have like stuff like this where, you know, the kids like growl or howl when the moon comes up and stuff. Like,
Yeah,
it's a lot more like a normal family, but they just have different ways of looking at things.
well, and it's one of the things that makes me feel like Addams Family maybe had more money than this did, because Addams Family is putting a lot of its visual jokes on the screen in full display. So saying like, look how impressive this thing we built is, and also isn't it funny? Yeah. This does a much more minimalistic thing. Where, and there's cool stuff they build, like the staircase, but
Yeah.
it's much more minimalistic, where it's like, we have this, and lets you use your imagination more. So that's where, like, I appreciate that approach too. It's not better or worse. It's different.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a big silhouette of the giant lizard pet on the wall. You're never gonna see it. We just know we have it,
Yeah.
and that kind of thing. That gag didn't play great for me.
Me neither.
Where he
I mean,
picks up
it
the
was,
fire and eats it.
Like, it was funny, but it wasn't like laugh out loud funny. Like, it was just something that, yeah, like that's a joke that would probably be in there.
So this is gonna sound kind of nitpicky, but the reason I'm gonna complain about it is because it seems a little too generic to me. Like, he's a vampire man,
Yeah.
and he's eating fire?
Yeah.
Vampires don't like fire. So, like, what's the gag there?
Yeah, I didn't.
That's the part of it I don't really get.
I think it's just because it's weird.
That's it. That's why I say it's generic. It's just weird. You and I have been watching too much Hamilton lately.
Yeah.
So I kept thinking Hamilton with both of these, because we watched the Addams Family, and I just kept thinking, like, Gomez Addams.
Oh.
and then we watched this, and it's like, there's George Washington.
George Washington.
Yeah, it would be nice to have George Washington on your side.
Yeah.
Cinema Arts Grandpa eats a sword in one episode. I mean, I see that more, I guess.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Well, does it?
I mean, well, it makes more sense.
It could be
doesn't-
something he could do because he's got magic powers, just generically. But to be a vampire and eat fire,
Yeah.
seems kind of strange to me. I love the innocence of Herman Munster.
Yeah. Where, like, he doesn't really understand that. Like, he's like...
There's much more of a kind of playful deviousness about the Addams Family. And these guys, they're much more of, like, a normal family.
Yeah.
You know, and so Addams Family, it's almost like an idealized family in the way they treat each other, but they're weird, and maybe engage in some scary stuff. And then here, it's a kind of relatively dysfunctional family, like, or sometimes dysfunctional, like particularly with Grandpa. You know, like they have to bring him with them just so that he won't turn himself into hors d'oeuvres, which is funny. But yeah, so they're, again, in just comparing pilots, they're a little bit more dysfunctional. They're a little bit less idealized.
Yeah.
They're good people, but I don't feel like they're the kind of role models the Addams Family is. And again, that's not what's intended in it. I don't know why we laughed at that. So every time he's in this suit of armor, we cannot stop laughing.
No, it's just because he's, like, when he's yawning, it syncs so much with the music. It's really funny because it's like dee 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 dee.
That's something I wanted to mention about Addams Family also is there's some what seems like intentional sound effect syncing with music.
Yeah.
Oh, we do that with a rug.
Yeah.
Oh, and you wanted to talk about music.
There was a point we missed it, but there's a point where
With the babysitter.
The babysitter is it's when she's first like, you know, in the house and she's just like looking around. And there's some weird score there where it just goes like da 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 da.
It's very strange. Each of these shows has a sometimes cartoonish quality to them in different ways.
Yeah.
I don't know if Addams Family would do the gag where somebody freaks out about how crazy, about how scary the Addams Family looks, and it makes their hair stand up.
Yeah.
So this does some kind of Saturday morning cartoon stuff like that, where like, and with when Herman looks in the mirror and it cracks.
Yeah. I don't know how I felt about that, but
it's a choice.
it's a choice.
It's a stylistic choice. They're consistent with it.
Yeah.
When they're doing that kind of thing. So I don't know, taking it on its own terms, I guess. I guess I'm just really glad that we got both shows.
Yeah.
Because they both bring something different for different kinds of audiences. And I'm starting to think maybe I was more the audience for Addams Family, but I didn't think I was.
Yeah.
I thought this was more my thing. And
Yeah.
now I'm questioning it just looking at the pilots.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to, you know, watch these shows more and find out. Herman is also, I don't know, with Addams Family, I just appreciate how not typical that family is. Where, like, this is the kind of standard TV relationship where your father, and, like, super endearing, but, like, the father is kind of absent-minded. He kind of needs his wife to ground him and focus him. She's more the brains of the operation. It takes him a while to even understand why he should be offended
Yeah.
by the guy who is wearing his face. And he doesn't even... I like that joke a lot where he goes, oh, you didn't even wear a costume for your party because he looks just like him.
Yeah.
But he's so unobservant and, again, absent-minded that he's like, oh, I recognize that face.
Yeah.
But maybe it's because he never is able to look in a mirror because they always crack when he does. Maybe that's the idea there.
No, No, the reason he... Are you talking about when he's, talking to the husband character?
Yeah, when he's like, I feel like I recognize you somewhere.
Yeah, and then he,
But, like, he should
accidentally-
recognize himself in him.
Right. No. It's because he accidentally insults him because he says that he isn't wearing a costume.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, like, he thinks that he's also just a Frankenstein monster.
No, I know that.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, when Herman looks at him, he's like, I feel like I recognize you from somewhere.
Yeah.
And he should be like, oh, you look a lot like me. But he doesn't say that.
Ah.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, maybe...
It's like he's so absent-minded, he doesn't even realize the guy looks like him, but it's familiar somehow.
Well,
like...
I think it might have been... I don't know. Maybe it's just like... There's many Frankenstein monsters in that universe, right?
Maybe
that,
so.
Like, he knows. And so, like, I don't know. That's what I thought, but...
Reginald Riglet says, fascinating to hear your opinions on this from different generations. Great stuff, y'all. Oh, thanks, man. Really appreciate it. And thoughts on the modern imagining with the Wednesday show. We will get to that eventually. I don't want to speak too much about it now because I've only watched about half that season and it's been a few months. I need to get back to it. I've overall really enjoyed it, though. And I didn't have much but the 90s movie to compare it to because I've never watched the show. So I know some people feel like that family is made too, like, scarier or mean-spirited or dysfunctional now in a way they weren't in the cartoon show. or the cartoon show in the sitcom. And I don't know if I'll feel that way after I watch more of the show and then go back to it.
Yeah.
But I didn't have that initially, but I didn't, have this to compare it to either.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Okay, I need to pull up my notes because I totally forgot to do that. So give me just 1 second here. But Jayson, are you still kind of giving it more to Addams Family?
Yeah. I think I am.
I think overall I am too, but they're both a lot of fun. They're both really good. Like I said, I'm glad we got them both.
Yeah.
And I just think it's crazy they both happen at the same time, which is something that happens every now and again, where in the same year you'll get two things that feel like one must have been a ripoff of the other, but they weren't. They were just both, conceived at the same time.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have those weird years where it's like Hollywood decides this year we're putting out movies about Roman times and, that kind of thing. Or you get like 1994 or 1992, is it, where you get Deep Space Nine and Babylon 5 at the same time.
Yeah.
And then...
We should do that.
And then
although those are both 40 minutes.
And I've done that show.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a whole show comparing those at one time. We never finished it. But Tom put in a $5 super chat and says, on my way home. Okay, cool. Is there any similarity between the pilot and the god-awful Rob Zombie movie? Well, they're the same characters.
And isn't that movie more of like a
Well, what would you know? You thought it was a cartoon until like 2 hours ago.
Well, I
but no, sorry,
understood
sorry,
the
what were you saying?
plot. I just didn't realize that.
I don't understand the basic plot, and I've watched it.
Okay.
But sorry,
yeah.
what were you gonna ask?
Isn't it like a beginning, like a?
It's an origin movie. Yeah.
I couldn't think of.
Why does this need an origin thing?
I don't know.
Yeah, it really doesn't.
It doesn't.
But no, it's like here's how Lily and Herman meet. And it's cynical and not funny, and the production values are terrible, and it looks like it. I didn't want to talk about that movie, but it looks like the whole thing was furnished by a pop-up Halloween store. But yeah, so let's go through our questions for both of these shows. We'll just do them real quick down the line. So with each of these, does the pilot tell a good story, or is it simply a litany of character introductions? Does it have pilotitis? I don't think either of these really has too much pilotitis.
And I think the character introductions for both of them are really good, where like they don't waste too much time, and they're they just like, here's a character, and then you'll figure out what his character traits are as you go on. Like,
yeah. I think so too. I will give it to Addams Family a little bit over the Munsters in setting up the premise of the show, because again, I like that you have a break in status quo for the whole world of the Addams Family.
Yeah.
Where it's like now their kids are going to school, so we have a show now.
Yeah.
And with Munsters, it's kind of more we just dropped you into the world, and there's not any reason it's right now. Mm-hmm. Again, that Beverly Hillbillies thing, where it's like, well, they're going to Beverly Hills now, so this is when we start hanging out with this family.
Yeah.
Who is the character that you would most want to return to see again?
Ooh.
For each show?
Well, for Munsters, it's Herman.
And I love Grandpa Munster, but just based on this, it would have been Herman for me too.
Yeah. And then
he definitely captured my attention more than anybody else did.
For Addams Family, probably also Gomez.
It's Gomez, absolutely. Yeah. That guy, magnetic.
Yeah.
That guy's personality.
Yeah.
Like so much charisma.
Yeah. He also voices Gomez in the animated show, right?
I don't know. Is that right?
I'm pretty sure.
I knew there wasn't. Was that 70s?
No, that was 90s. That was early 90s.
Oh.
Pretty sure.
There's an animated.
I mean, I don't know.
I know in the early
I don't
90s. I don't think that's true. I'm pretty sure there was one in the 60s or 70s though, and I'm pretty sure Scooby-Doo had a crossover with it, maybe with the Scooby-Doo movies. I might be wrong about that. I forget. I'll have to go back and look. It's been forever. Does this make you want to watch more sitcoms or horror-based things in different genres?
I mean, I'm already such a big sitcom guy, that doesn't really, like, if I were, probably,
This just makes you want to watch
But-
more of these shows.
it makes me want to watch more 60s sitcoms, yeah.
Okay, cool. Does it feel like the show already has an identity, or does it need to find its footing? I think in both of
I
these
think in both
cases,
of them.
the footing is pretty sure.
Which, I'm pretty sure Munsters changes quite a bit by the end.
Well,
But I also have not seen all of it, so I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But that's what
And
I've
Munsters
heard
goes color eventually, right?
pretty sure, but I'm not.
Or no, I guess it can't because,
guess no.
like you said, it gets canceled because it's not in color. What
Yeah.
am I talking about? Yeah. Do you think I would sorry, but one of my speakers is talking. I would actually make the case that Munsters maybe should have stayed color from the beginning.
Yeah.
And it would have been kind of neat if you'd had a black and white one and a color one.
Yeah.
Because I think Addams Family looks great in black and white, and Munsters looks fine in black and white, but I don't actually think it needed that.
I don't think it did need either.
Although, being Universal Monsters, I can kind of see the logic of let's keep it black and white
Yeah.
also.
Yeah,
just
that's true.
Those always had been. If you were a network executive, would you greenlight the series? In both cases, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course. And will we realistically keep watching these shows? If time permits.
At least Addams Family, yeah.
Yeah, and I've seen enough Munsters that like I eventually would like to see the rest of it, but right now I would make Addams Family more of a priority because I'm curious now
Yeah.
in a way I wasn't really before, and I want to watch more of it before I go back to Wednesday.
Yeah.
I have that too. AMC Know It Happened Cap new Scooby-Doo movies. That's what I thought. That's what I thought I remembered. Okay, I don't know why that speaker's going off like that. I don't know if you guys can even hear that. But anyway, so that is our show.
That is.
Besides announcing the next episode, is there anything else we need to do here?
I don't think there's
We've
anything.
we kind of got it, right?
We kind of got it, yeah.
Well, this was the most fun of these for me so far.
I think so, too.
I really enjoyed doing this. Okay, so we're gonna do 2 more Halloween or horror type themed shows for the next 2 weeks for the month of October, and I don't know, the last one might actually get into November, but around Halloween, and I'm going to announce that Jayson and I have not talked to each other about this yet. So I picked the one for next week, and Jayson picked the one for the week after.
And hopefully we didn't pick the same thing.
I doubt we did. Well, I know we didn't because you said you've seen yours.
Yeah,
And the one I picked is one you've not seen.
Okay.
Okay, so we had, and this was not an official request, but I decided to go ahead and do it anyway. A guy in the comments last week, I think it was with a super chat, suggested that we do. So again, I'm not doing every request that somebody requests, but this was a thing I was already kicking around, putting it on the short list anyway. So I was like, yeah, let's go and do it now. And he left us a nice super chat, so I thought I'd make an exception, go ahead and do this one. Richard's Victims. He sounds like he belongs in a horror universe himself. Suggested that we go ahead and do the pilot for Stranger Things.
Okay, cool.
So next time we're gonna do Stranger Things.
I actually
which,
did think about that.
Did you?
Yeah.
Which I've seen the first season for, but it's been a long time and it was fine, but I didn't get real into it like people do. Like
Okay.
it didn't turn me into a mega fan. I wasn't like over the moon. Oh my god, I can't wait to watch more of the show. It was fine.
Yeah.
But you will probably like it more than I did.
I think it's always seemed like something that I would like.
So a caveat I have to throw in with that is when we do that pilot, it will essentially be as if I've never seen it because that show's not sticking with me. I will not remember hardly anything about it. Like, I sort of remember what the monster looks like. That's about it. Like,
Okay.
and so people are going to be like, oh my god, Cap, you've seen the show. Why don't you remember more about it? I don't know, it didn't really stick with me. Anyway, so then, Jayson, you go ahead and announce our show for the week after. And we're not usually going to do this. We usually announce it, week to week. But thought I'd make an exception for Halloween stuff. So what are we going to do? And I gave Jayson carte blanche on this as long as it's long enough. So did you pick an hour show, or did you pick 2 half-hour shows?
I did not pick 2 half-hour shows.
Okay, what'd you pick?
I picked Gargoyles.
Gargoyles.
Yes.
Gargoyles has like a 5-part pilot.
Yes.
Okay, that's gonna be hefty. That's gonna take us a little bit of time.
Yeah.
But I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea. Are we gonna do the whole thing? Because I mean, that is movie length, and it was released as a movie too.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
And I did not know
I used to
that.
have it. I want to get my hands on it again. Do you know about this?
No.
Okay. Well, you just said you didn't know it was a movie. So there was a VHS clamshell release, right? For the 5-part pilot as an uncut movie. And it was seamless. It was really cool to watch it that way. But it came with a VCR board game.
Oh,
It came with like pieces in the
that's
back.
awesome.
I wish I still had it. I played it a few times. It was fun. But anyway, we should do a video on that whole thing if I can get my hands on it again.
Yeah.
I don't know what that goes for now. But you picked the perfect time to do Gargoyles. Do you know about this? Because it was just announced. Yesterday or today, I forget. Like, it was just announced that Disney Plus is doing a live-action version of that.
Oh gosh.
And
no.
I'm horrified. Like, I don't
They
want
can't
that
do
to happen.
that.
We'll probably talk about that on the Captain Logan show this week. But I can't believe you picked the perfect time to talk about that.
Yeah. That's.
Tom says, $2 super chat, can't remember if it's in the pilot, but it has Taserface. Is he talking about Stranger Things?
Probably.
Probably. The guy who played Taserface? Yeah, I've never seen him in anything else. Daniverse Disney used to put out their pilots as uncut movies. Well, and this one was longer than they usually were. I mean, like, it's an honest to God, like,
It's
an
like
hour
those, 40.
It's like those 4 or 5 part X-Men episodes.
Yeah.
Except they opened it like that.
Yeah.
And it's a great origin movie.
It
Like,
is.
dude, that show has such beautiful animation. It's so cinematic. They should have just put that in the movie theater and then taken it to series.
Yeah.
It looks that good.
Yeah.
All you had to do was render it in a different aspect ratio.
Yep.
And then you're golden.
Yeah.
HB Haga, no, leave Gargoyles alone. My
Yeah.
sentiments exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's like one of the guys that I don't know this horror franchise, like Annabelle and those things. It's one of those guys.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's like it's James Wan's company. I don't think James Wan is making it, but it's like his company.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't even. First of all, well, I'm going to talk about this on the Captain Logan show. But first of all, who ever asked for that?
No one.
Like, who in the world has ever said, I really wish they'd make a live-action Gargoyles thing? and secondly, if you're... That's not where you do it. You put it in the movie theater. Like, there's no way Disney Plus is going to give that the resources it would need to look good.
Right.
We couldn't even make She-Hulk look good. Okay, anyway. We're going to get going. Now you got me on Gargoyles. Good pick, though.
Yeah.
That was the last thing I thought you'd say. I wasn't even thinking of that for, like horror stuff. But yeah, it's got the
like the
it's
dark,
got it's got a
rainy, like,
yeah
it's always nighttime.
it's gothic. It's
Yeah,
gothic.
goth-
Yeah. So it's the right time for that. It's gothic. And you don't have that show without Batman animated series. They're clearly looking real close at that animation style.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we're going to get going. Ooh, I'm excited. That's such a good pick.
Yeah.
We'll see you again next time. We're going to do Stranger Things, so watch that ahead of it if you're so inclined. And we'll do it again in the afternoon, early in the week next week like we did, like we have been Monday or Tuesday. We'll see you again real soon. I was Captain Logan.
I was Jason.
See you later, folks.